The vast chamber of the Galactic Tribunal shimmered with sterile light, casting long reflections off polished obsidian floors and crystalline walls. Delegates from 100 worlds filled the circular hall, their voices hushed, their expressions unreadable. At the center, elevated slightly above the others, sat a single human, Ambassador Alara Miles. She wore the pale blue uniform of the United Earth Coalition, her posture perfect, her eyes scanning the room with calculated calm. Today was supposed to be ceremonial, Earth's full admission into the Galactic Union after years of scrutiny and diplomacy. The Union had been watching humanity closely. In the span of just 2 centuries, they had gone from fragmented nation-states to a unified planetary force. Faster-than-light travel, diplomatic finesse, and an unshakable sense of identity had earned them a seat at the table. Not everyone was pleased. From the delegation of the Zerati Dominion rose a figure, towering robed and ancient-looking. Varnak, High Judicator of the Zerati, moved with eerie grace. His skin, a greenish lattice of scaled ridges, seemed to pulse faintly with every step. Alara recognized him immediately. He had been an opponent of Earth's induction since the beginning. Still, protocol demanded respect. She nodded, even smiled slightly. Varnak did not return the gesture. Instead, he moved toward the center of the chamber, past gasps and murmurs. A sudden chill settled over the crowd, as if they sensed something dreadful in the air. Alara's smile faltered. She stood. Judicator Varnak. She said evenly, "Is there a matter to address before the vote is cast?" He raised one long-fingered hand, the tips crackling with golden light. The glow twisted like flame, but made no sound. Alara's eyes widened. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates rose from their seats. Security drones activated, but too slowly. The energy lanced forward. A golden bolt slammed into Alara's chest. She gasped, staggered, and collapsed into the chair behind her, her body convulsed, illuminated by the lingering remnants of alien fire. And then she went still, her eyes wide open, locked on nothing. The room fell into stunned silence. Varnak lowered his hand. The age of Earth's arrogance ends now. He turned and walked away. It took moments for anyone to move. Medics rushed to Alara's side. Delegates screamed at one another in a dozen languages. Drones swarmed Varnak. Though he made no effort to flee, he allowed himself to be restrained, watching them with eyes full of contempt. Earth's ambassador, the first to ever stand in the tribunal, was dead. The news traveled faster than light. Within minutes, Earth's global feeds were flooded with footage. Every child, elder, and soldier watched the moment Alara was killed. Analysts tried to explain. Leaders tried to calm, but none of it mattered. Humanity watched in silence, the kind that simmered. In orbit above Mars, Admiral J.L. Thorne stood on the bridge of the UEC Resolute, eyes fixed on projection. Around her, her officers waited for orders. None came. Thorne didn't speak until the footage ended. "Shut it down," she said. Silence reclaimed the command deck. She was unarmed. Her second-in-command said softly. Send a signal to command. Full planetary sync. I want Earth, Luna, Europa, and every deep space station on alert status within the hour. But the Union let this happen. She turned slowly, her expression unreadable. No further debates. This is war. Back on Earth, in the sleek, glass-walled chambers of the Global Assembly, President Sarai Chin stood before the leaders of humanity. Her voice was steady, even as fury burned behind her eyes. This act of aggression was not a political statement, she said. It was murder. Ambassador Alara Miles represented peace, reason, and the dignity of our species. Her death is not a warning. It is a declaration. Some in the room urged caution. Earth was powerful, but young compared to the empires of stars. Others argued diplomacy, that the assassin had acted alone, that the tribunal had already taken him into custody. Chin silenced them with a raised hand. We are not children seeking protection. We are the voice of Earth. And today, that voice has been silenced. There were no more objections. Across the solar system, defense networks spun to life. AI coordinators activated blacklisted protocols. Fleets repositioned. Quiet satellites began to hum with energy signatures the galaxy hadn't seen, because Earth had never revealed them. In the tribunal, Varnak sat imprisoned in a cell of hard light. He showed no fear. He welcomed what was coming. They will not strike, he told his guards. They lack the spine. Their unity is skin-deep, like their minds. He didn't see the trembling in the guard's jaw. He didn't hear the whispered reports crackling through hidden channels. He didn't know Earth wasn't discussing retaliation. They were already preparing it. At the edge of the system, beyond Pluto's orbit, the Vigilant, Earth's first deep-cloak reconnaissance vessel, received a single command: observe, report, do not intervene. They watched as the Zerati homeworld's defenses glowed to life. They saw ships mobilizing, satellites aligning. The enemy was preparing too, not out of guilt, but because they knew Earth would come. Varnak's act had not been rogue. It had been sanctioned. A test, a challenge. They thought Earth would beg, plead, accept apologies. They didn't know Earth. Back in her quarters aboard the Resolute, Admiral Thorne stood alone, watching the stars. "They think we fear them," she whispered to the void. "They've never seen us angry." Her calm buzzed. A single message. Authorization granted. Protocol requital. She stared at it for a moment, then closed her eyes. For a moment, she remembered Alara laughing in the halls of the Academy, challenging world leaders in debate chambers, speaking of peace like it was inevitable. And then she opened her eyes. "Ready the fleet," she said. The stars would never be the same again. In the weeks following the assassination of Ambassador Alara Miles, Earth's reaction was swift, methodical, and terrifying. The silence that had gripped the planet in the immediate aftermath of her death gave way to a chorus of furious voices, each demanding retribution, justice, and revenge. News feeds across the globe burned with reports, broadcasts, and endless analysis, all focusing on the same burning question: what would Earth do next? At the heart of the global response stood President Sarai-Chun, a figure whose calm and stoic demeanor masked the volcanic rage brewing beneath the surface. She had spent the past 3 days in conference with Earth's military leaders, political figures, and intelligence officers. The murder of Alara Miles wasn't just an attack on a diplomat. It was an attack on humanity itself. Chun knew the eyes of the galaxy would be watching Earth's next move, and she would not let them see a planet unprepared. In the war rooms beneath the president's office, Admiral J.L. Thorne stood at the center of a vast holographic map, her fingers tracing invisible lines through the star systems surrounding Earth. Her face was hard, her eyes narrow with purpose, the weight of the task at hand pulling her posture rigid. The death of Alara had left an indelible mark on her soul, one she had never known she was capable of carrying. Thorne's voice was quiet, but it held an edge of finality that no one in the room dared question. Activate the quantum net. Begin the synchronization process across all factions. Every fleet, every station. We move together or we move alone. Her second-in-command, Commander Rian Patel, hesitated for just a fraction of a second before replying. "Understood, Admiral. But if we go to war now, we risk alienating an entire galaxy. The other species might see this as an overreaction." Thorne cut him off with a steely glance. "It's too late for negotiation. The moment Varnak fired that weapon, we became the hunted. We can either rise to defend ourselves, or we can be slaughtered like cattle. There is no middle ground." Patel nodded, clearly struggling with the gravity of the situation. "And our strategy? The strategy is simple. Destroy them before they can destroy us. We will strike first, and we will hit harder than they ever thought possible. The Zerati think they can bend us to their will, but they haven't seen what Earth is capable of. They will soon learn." Thorne's eyes flickered with a hint of cold satisfaction. She turned to the hollow table, her hands a blur as she plotted their course of action. The decision had been made. The first phase of Earth's response would be a strike against the Zerati homeworld. They would show no mercy. The Vigilant, Earth's deep-cloaked reconnaissance ship, had gathered enough intelligence to know where the Zerati's weakest points lay. Their planet was heavily fortified, but Earth's fleet possessed technologies far beyond anything the Zerati had seen. A team of elite engineers and military tacticians had already begun the preparations. The Resolute, Earth's flagship, would lead the assault. It was equipped with cutting-edge quantum weapons capable of warping the very fabric of space, allowing them to strike from impossible angles. The fleet would be backed by stealth drones, AI-assisted battlecruisers, and the brutal might of Earth's most powerful warships. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the Global Assembly had moved quickly to consolidate power. President Chun convened emergency sessions with leaders from every corner of the world, rallying them behind a unified front. "This is not just a fight for our future," she said in a broadcasted address. "This is a fight for our humanity. We will show the galaxy that Earth will not bow to anyone, not the Zerati, not the Dominion, not anyone." While Chin galvanized the political forces of Earth, Thorne's focus remained solely on the coming battle. She spent every waking hour coordinating with the fleet commanders, ensuring every ship was outfitted with the best technology available. Her reputation as a fierce strategist had already been cemented during the early years of Earth's rise as a galactic power. Now, it would be tested like never before. On the eve of the operation, Thorne stood in the quiet of the Resolute's bridge, gazing out at the dark void of space. The stars were pinpricks of light against the black canvas, but there was no beauty in their coldness, only the stark reminder of what was at stake. Illyra's death had shaken the galaxy, but it had also awakened something in Earth's people, a strength that no one had realized existed, a unity forged in grief, but made stronger by the will to survive. "I'll see this through," Thorne whispered to herself, the words barely audible. For Illyra, for Earth. As the fleet prepared to depart, the air was thick with tension. The commanders were briefed. The officers nodded in grim understanding. The crew members worked in precise synchrony, their faces a mix of determination and anxiety. No one had ever expected Earth to fight like this. But the time for diplomacy was over. Varnak's fatal decision had sealed their fate. In orbit, the Vigilant activated its cloaking device, disappearing into the shadows of space as it charted a course for the Zerati homeworld. The rest of the fleet would follow shortly after, emerging from the depths of the solar system in perfect unison. Earth's response would be swift, calculated, and overwhelming. The Zerati might have underestimated them, but now they would feel the full weight of humanity's wrath. Meanwhile, on the Zerati homeworld, the ruling council had not yet fully processed the magnitude of the event. Varnak, though a high-ranking official, had acted without the council's approval. But to the Zerati, it did not matter. The ambassador's death had set off a chain reaction of fear and suspicion, and soon the planet would be fortified to an extent that would leave even the most advanced species quaking in their boots. Varnak had been placed under heavy guard, though he appeared unconcerned by the efforts to contain him. The prison cell in which he had been confined was a shimmering cage of hard light, but to him, it was nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. His people, the Zerati, were warriors. They understood the risks of defiance, but they also understood something else, something far more dangerous. Varnak's thoughts were as sharp as the energy bolts he had unleashed that fateful day. The galaxy would bend or break under the weight of their actions, and if Earth thought it could stand against the might of the Zerati Dominion, it was sorely mistaken. But as the Zerati gathered their forces, tightening their defenses, they failed to realize the storm that was already gathering on the horizon. Earth had made its decision. The ships were in motion. The first attack would soon commence, and when it did, the galaxy would never be the same again. On Earth, the countdown to battle began. The fleet was poised, ready to strike. And as Admiral Thorne gave the order to launch, she allowed herself one final thought. The Zerati had awakened something within Earth, something primal, something fierce. And now they would see exactly what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. The galaxy was about to learn a new truth. Earth was no longer a meek player in the cosmic game. Earth was here to win. The void around Zerati's prime shimmered with a tension older than memory. The Zerati fleets hung in disciplined silence, a phalanx of obsidian and silver. Each ship was a monolith of engineered precision, bristling with plasma turrets and kinetic rail batteries capable of carving moons in half. They floated with menace, forming a protective wall around their homeworld. Their confidence was palpable. After all, no species had ever dared breach their defenses. No one had ever tried. Until now, Earth's fleet emerged not with grand fanfare, but in deliberate silence, slipping from the folds of space like whispers from another dimension. The Resolute, leading the charge, shimmered with a sleek menace, its hull pulsating with the soft hum of exotic energy. Behind it, a storm of warships unfurled into the blackness. Battleships, carriers, drones, and vessels Earth had never shown the galaxy until now. They carried no flags, no symbols, just a raw expression of purpose. Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge with stillness that mirrored the void, her eyes fixed on the enemy formations ahead. She said nothing for several moments. Around her, the bridge crew moved like parts of a single organism, synchronized, precise. Every breath, every keystroke mattered. "Final confirmations," she said quietly. "All vessels report green. Weapons primed. Shields at full," Commander Patel replied, his voice clipped but steady. Cloak disengaged. "They see us now." Thorne nodded. "Good. Let them." On the Zerati flagship Vrasendel, High Strategist Jurek stood with his arms crossed, a growl curling at the back of his throat. The humans had arrived sooner than expected. That they had arrived at all was bold beyond reason. He had reviewed the reports from the tribunal, Varnak's trial, the diplomatic fallout, the shock across the Union. But this was not shock. This was precision, intent, and vengeance. Status. Jurek barked. "Enemy fleet is positioning. Holding formation. No broadcast received. No request for negotiation." "Of course not," Jurek spat. "They come to bleed." He turned to his second, a younger warrior named Vesha. "Let them taste the fire of Zeratis. Lock warhead batteries. Ready the sun lances. Prepare boarding crews." Vesha hesitated. "High strategists. Their lead ships carry energy readings unlike anything we've cataloged." "Then catalog it," Jurek snapped, "before we destroy it." Thorne watched as the Zerati fleet began to shift, opening defensive formations, preparing to fire. Her fingers tightened on the command console. "They're going to strike first," Patel said grimly. "I was counting on it," she replied. "Initiate protocol, Orion." Across the Earth fleet, hundreds of ships activated a synchronized sequence. Shields hardened with quantum layering. Engines surged with zero-point bursts, and weapons began to glow with eerie light. Then, from the heart of the Resolute, a pulse of invisible energy exploded outward. Not an attack, but a disruption. One carefully calculated frequency that sent a ripple through space-time. The first volley of Zerati fire was already in motion when their systems buckled, turrets misfired, guidance systems spasmed. Jurek shouted, slamming his fist against the interface. "What is this?" "They're scrambling our targeting arrays." Vesha yelled, "I don't know how, but it's interfering with quantum feedback loops." "They're using our tech against us," Jurek snarled. "Adapt, manually if you have to." But the Earth ships didn't wait. The counterstrike began in silence. Drones slipped past Zerati formations, cloaked and agile. They attached themselves to the hulls of enemy ships, then detonated in focused bursts that carved through armor like paper. Earth's rail cannons fired not projectiles, but graviton-laced spikes that bent light as they traveled, making them nearly impossible to trace. The Zerati faltered. On the Resolute, Admiral Thorne never raised her voice. "Sweep left flank. Have the Vanguard loop the debris field. Cut their comm relays." Patel's hands flew across the console. "Confirmed. Secondary wave en route. Should we activate the loosened protocols?" Thorne paused. "No, not yet. Let them feel fear first." In space, that fear was taking shape. For the first time in generations, the Zerati were being driven back, not by sheer numbers, but by brilliance. Tactics layered with misdirection, aggression countered with elegance. It was war played like a symphony. Thorne's symphony. Jurek watched in horror as the Harvanok, one of their primary carriers, was split in two by a single, searing beam of light. It hadn't even shown up on sensors until the moment of impact. "They've hidden entire vessels in waveform dispersion fields," Vesha said, his voice tinged with awe. They're not just attacking. They're rewriting the rules of engagement. This was supposed to be a lesson for them." Jurek roared, "A punishment for overreaching." But Earth had not overreached. Earth had prepared. Back on the Resolute, Thorne's eyes were locked on the Zerati command ship. Target the Vrasendel with the ether lance. Precision strike. Minimal collateral. I want Jurek alive. Patel hesitated. Alive? He needs to understand what just happened. I want him to crawl back to his council and tell them what Earth did in a single day. The ether lance charged in silence. When it fired, space rippled. The beam pierced the Zerati flagship clean through its midsection, disabling power systems without breaching the hull. Sparks erupted across its surface as lights flickered and died. Inside the command chamber, emergency lighting bathed the space in red. Jurek coughed against smoke and gravity distortions. All around him, his officers lay stunned or unconscious. Signal anyone, he growled, dragging himself toward a cracked console. A blue flicker appeared before him. Not a transmission, but a projection. Admiral Thorne's face. You had your chance, she said. Your empire killed one of ours, unprovoked. Now we've shown you what Earth does when pushed. You'll unite the galaxy against you. Jurek wheezed. Maybe, Thorne said, but not before we dismantle yours. The projection vanished. Above Zerati's prime, Earth's fleet began to reposition. Not a retreat, but to form a wall. They weren't just attacking. They were blocking every escape, every reinforcement route, every call for aid. The message was clear. This was no raid. This was a reckoning. Patel turned to Thorne, his face unreadable. Phase 2. She nodded. Hold position. Await directive from President Chun. And begin broadcasts. Let the galaxy see what justice looks like. As the ship settled into place, cameras activated. Beacons sent out encrypted feeds to Union systems. The galaxy would see the burning husks of Zerati pride, would hear Thorne's voice calmly detailing every move, every justification. It would not be propaganda. It would be truth, unflinching, undeniable. And somewhere in the depths of the Union, governments watched in horror, others in awe. Earth had spoken. And now, the galaxy had to answer. The galaxy reeled. In the wake of the Battle of Zerati's prime, no one could deny it. Earth had changed. What had once been a quiet, ambitious member of the Galactic Union now stood unveiled as a superpower cloaked in precision and wrath. The footage of Earth's fleet dismantling the proud Zerati armada played on every station, translated into 1,000 languages. Some watched with admiration, others with dread, but no one looked away. On Earth, the silence was sobering. There was no celebration, no parade, only the quiet hum of a planet holding its breath. The war was not over. This was only the beginning. President Sarai Chin stood before the Global Assembly once more, her presence as composed as it was relentless. The chamber was darkened except for projected holograms of every leader from the 27 sovereign blocs. Around her, whispers of uncertainty passed through diplomats and analysts alike. They knew what Earth had done, and many had agreed with it. But the cost was only beginning to unfold. We did not strike first, Chin said, her voice unwavering. We answered the declaration. The assassination of Alara Miles was not a crime of passion. It was a test. And Earth has given its answer. An envoy from the Europa Collective, sleek and androgynous in a flowing silver robe, leaned forward. And what of the Zerati now? Have we forced them into submission or created a future enemy even more determined to retaliate? Chun didn't hesitate. We have forced them into reckoning. And we will do what we must ensure this galaxy remembers that humans do not kneel when threatened, we stand. Elsewhere, Admiral Thorne paced aboard the Resolute, now stationed just outside the orbital perimeter of Zerati's prime. The system was under full lockdown. Relief ships escorted by armed drones monitored the planet below. No reinforcements. No retaliation. Only compliance. Commander Patel approached, datapad in hand. Update from ground observation teams. Zerati communications are silent. Civil leadership appears fractured. Varnak has not been seen since his tribunal. Cowards run when the curtain falls, Thorne murmured. Let them. But there's something else, Patel continued. We've intercepted secure transmissions from 2 other systems. Distant colonies. Neither Zerati, but not Union-aligned either. They're watching. Closely. Thorn turned. Testing our next move? Or bracing for their turn? She exhaled through her nose, slow and steady. This isn't over. Not by far. In a deep sector penal colony orbiting the dead star Valoran, Varnak sat in solitude. His cell was a hollow shell of silence, broken only by the soft pulse of containment fields. Stripped of his title, his armor, and his legacy, he sat cross-legged, unmoved, his gaze fixed on nothing. When the door opened, he didn't look up. The figure who entered was not Zarati. He moved with quiet grace, robed in dust-colored fabric. His face was half-covered, but his eyes were ancient, a shade not seen in any known species. His voice, when it came, was like sand against glass. "You gambled on the rage of an empire," the stranger said. "And you lost?" Varnak smirked. "I opened the door. Someone had to." "You didn't open the door," the stranger replied. "You set fire to the entire corridor. Now the flames spread." Varnak's grin widened. "Good. Let them." On Earth, a new kind of silence began to settle, one not born of grief, but of consideration. Illyra Miles' face still adorned the walls of embassies and public spaces, her death a wound that refused to scab over. But something else was rising, something electric. Earth's people were awakening to their place among the stars. No longer the curious upstarts, no longer the underestimated. Among the general populace, voices stirred, some calling for diplomacy, others for strength. Debates flared in every forum. Was Earth now a guardian or a threat? Was this justice or something more dangerous? At the Strategic Command Center in Geneva, Thorn met with Chin via encrypted relay. "We've seen activity on the edge of Dominion space," Thorn reported. "Subtle, coordinated. Nothing overt, but they're preparing." Chin nodded. "They saw the strike on Zeratis. They're gauging how far we'll go. And they'll find out." Thorn's lips thinned. "I'm not sure how many more enemies we can afford to make." "We're not making enemies," Chin said quietly. "We're making boundaries." A beat passed between them. Then Thorn added, "If they cross them, then we make them regret it." In the halls of the Galactic Union's Central Assembly, a storm brewed. Earth's delegation, now led by Ambassador Dae Kim, a sharp-eyed diplomat with a background in military intelligence, stood before the council as murmurs rose like waves. "We will not apologize," Dae said calmly. "We did what was necessary to protect our people, our sovereignty, and the foundational principles of this union." A Moreni elder hissed from across the chamber, "You are not judges. You are not executioners." Dae inclined his head. And yet no other species came forward. Not when Illyra was killed. Not when the Zerati mocked the tribunal. Earth acted. Now others must decide. Will you stand with justice or with fear? The chamber fell into silence. It wasn't agreement, but it was respect. That night, Chin walked alone through the gardens outside the executive residence. Stars glittered above, and for a moment, she allowed herself to imagine Illyra walking beside her. Calm, hopeful, unyielding. "We did what you would have done," she said softly. A soft chime interrupted her reverie. A secure message. She read the encryption, then the source, then the contents. Her expression shifted. Eyes narrowed. Shoulders straightened. Admiral Thorn received the message 3 minutes later. Target: unidentified fleet. Origin: unknown space. Behavior: coordinated. Silent. Advancing. She stared at the data feed. "This isn't Zerati." Patel leaned in. "Then who is it?" Thorn didn't respond. Her gaze had gone distant. Because somewhere beyond the borders of known space, something else had been watching. Not the Dominion. Not the Union. Something older. And now it was coming.